All right, we're going to begin this morning with the latest on that third batch of documents marked classified from the Obama administration, which was found in President Biden's Wilmington home.
Over the weekend, the White House said those additional documents were found in a room adjacent to the garage where a different set of classified documents were found last week. Discovery was made after attorneys had stopped and someone with security clearance picked it back up. The first set of documents was found last November, just before the midterms, in a Washington office that Mr. Biden used following his vice presidency. They've been turned over to the National Archives. The ones found in his home were handed over to the DOJ. A special counsel has now been named to look into President Biden's handling of classified documents. For the very latest, let's bring in NBC News White House correspondent Allie Raffa, who joins us from Wilmington, Delaware. Allie, good morning to you. So first, what can you tell us now about this third batch of documents that were found? And are President Biden's aides still searching for potentially even more documents?
Yeah, Lindsay and Joe, good morning. We learned about this latest discovery on Saturday in two new statements from White House counsel Richard Sauber, as well as President Biden's personal lawyers, saying that this newest batch of classified materials, these new pages, were discovered Thursday, a day after that single document was discovered in an adjacent room to the garage in President Biden's Wilmington home. White House counsel Richard Sauber saying he discovered these additional pages himself after he was trying to transfer these documents to DOJ officials after President Biden's personal lawyers called him in to be able to do that act, saying they didn't have the security clearance required to be able to do that. But this is all leading to two more big questions that we have, which is, again, why did the White House wait several days after this discovery to publicly acknowledge this, as well as the question of if these personal lawyers weren't allowed to have the security clearance to handle these classified materials, why then were they allowed to search President Biden's home after they found those classified materials at the Penn Biden Center? These are questions that a lot of reporters are asking the White House. So far, we haven't gotten a response yet, you guys.
I mean, Allie, you mentioned some of the questions that are still outstanding. The White House has been playing defense over the past week since these classified documents investigation began and when it went public. What's the administration's stance regarding the documents and how the situation is being handled?
Yeah, the White House is taking this posture of transparency. They're saying that they don't want to look like they're interfering in this ongoing independent investigation by this new special counsel appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland. They're saying that they want to give this the space it deserves, respect the space. And I want you to take a listen to a bit of what Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre had to say in response to a bunch of questions about this back on Friday.
We have addressed this issue multiple times at length, and we have been fully cooperating with the Department of Justice, and now we will be doing the same with the Special Counsel's Office just to be prudent here and just to make sure that we are consistent. I would refer you anything that is related to this, as it relates to the review, to the Department of Justice or my colleagues at the White House Counsel Office.
The White House is pointing to the differences in President Biden's case versus his predecessors. Obviously, the Biden team immediately turning over these documents and reporting them as soon as they were found versus former President Trump, who defied multiple subpoenas in the case of those classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. They're pointing to the fact that this is a much smaller batch compared to the hundreds of classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. But really, this lack of a full and cohesive response from the White House about questions that the White House and even Democrats are saying they're frustrated, saying that these are questions that the White House would be able to answer that wouldn't interfere with the special counsel's investigation, rather. So there are still Democrats, even aides inside the White House, that are frustrated by the White House's responses to this as a whole.
So, Allie, Democrats are frustrated. We know Republicans are very eager to investigate the sitting president. They were before this. Now this gives them a new target. And over the weekend, House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer sent a letter to the White House Chief of Staff. Tell us about that and what the congressman's looking for.
So Congressman Comer is sending this letter to White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain asking for the visitor logs to not only the Penn Biden Center, to President Biden's Wilmington home, asking essentially who may have had access to these classified documents during the years that they were there. Then you have House Oversight Committee Chairman Jim Jordan also launching probes into this, possibly calling for the politicization of the special counsel's office of the Justice Department. This is to Republicans really the gift that keeps on giving, because as you mentioned, President Biden, the White House had been staffing up on their legal team, preparing for just an onslaught of GOP-led probes once the Republicans gained back the House majority, into things like the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, the crisis at the border. But this is something that the White House did not see coming, something that we can assume they're working behind the scenes to prepare for, guys.
Allie, what are the next steps in the special counsel's investigation?
So right now we know that the special counsel's office has interviewed multiple former staffers of then Vice President Biden who may have helped pack up these classified materials in these boxes, whether they delivered them to either the Penn Biden Center or President Biden's Wilmington home. But as to the question of whether President Biden would be willing to sit down with the special counsel, that's something that my colleague Kristen Welker asked Karine Jean-Pierre on Friday and didn't get an answer. So there's still looming big questions about what the White House's cooperation is going to be moving forward, really how long this special counsel probe is going to last, and whether that could possibly impact the plans the president has to possibly make an announcement on a potential run in 2024, guys.
All right, Allie Raffa in Delaware. Allie, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.